This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Michigan Local User Group, or LUG, event that was planned today. We've got Microfocus presenting on UFT One, AI, infused testing, and some conversation using SAP, and we may have some other things down the road with a little bonus surprise that we'll get to. I'm Rocky Pisto. I am the founder of the Michigan User Group, her local LUG. I launched this thing in the year 2000, back when it was just HP OpenView related products. So we've kept it going so far. It's been great. Doing it virtually seems to make life a little easier. And I know that based on the audience sample that we've got folks really from all over the world attending this session to hear from our expert. And so besides being the LUG leader for the last 20 years, I'm also the Vivid sponsorship liaison. I work with the partners and Microfocus to bring you content to make sure that you're up to date with what's happening in the Microfocus space. So a lot of the webinars that you've seen and some of the other things are coming through relationships that we've had with the Microfocus folks. And I've been involved with Vivid since about 1997, I think. I went to my first event in 98. So long background in those related tools. So today's speaker is none other than Don Jackson. And besides having over 20 years of ALM, test director, quality center experience, another 8 or so in Load Runner, 10 years with WinRunner. You know, Don is like you. He's the practitioner's practitioner. He's been at customer sites. He's worked for customers and had the opportunity to share some of the practices and concerns or issues or whatnot that you're experiencing today. So make sure, like Terry said, we're trying to make this as interactive as possible. You have any questions, please share them, and Don can answer them or at least get information to help you get along with that. So that's Don. So what to expect? Well, we appreciate you joining us today and hope that you'll be safe and healthy. These events are normally face-to-face, which I think are probably the best way to get to know folks and share best practices. But due to the pandemic, we're holding it virtually. And in this way, we have been able to invite companies all over Michigan. And in fact, there's some of you that are from other regions around the country and around the world attending today, so welcome. Today's live session is being recorded and it's posted to all Vivid members. So you'll be able to see this in its entirety or share it with your teammates that couldn't attend today's session. And make sure you join Vivid or have them join Vivid to get all the latest from the user group. So when you're not asking a question, looks like everybody's muted anyway, so we're fine there. But you can unmute yourself if you have a question or type it into in the control panel under the questions area. So submitting a question, click on the dialog box icon in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and type your question when the panel expands. So that takes care of that. And there's a video cam thing there too, so you can take a look at that. And so if you want to share something, you can turn on your video cam so we can see you as well. Just makes it more interactive and makes it easier for us to poke fun at you as well. So go ahead, Don. Next slide, please. So meet Vivid. For those of you that are joining or not a Vivid member, I wanted to share with you our community, what our community is all about. We're independent. We're not-for-profit service organization that represents the broader Microfocus community globally and endorsed by Microfocus as a user group. Our mission is to help you with advocacy, community, and education, just help you grow your careers to make sure you've got all the information you need to address it. I know as a lug leader, I met a lot of customers over the 20 years, and everyone really appreciates the opportunity of learning what others are doing with the tools, besides getting the updates from our experts. It's just, how did you do that? We've got an upgrade coming. We got these issues. How did you do it in your shop? And there's nothing better than that to take advantage of making sure that this stuff doesn't become shelfware. So Vivid's been around for at least 23, 24 years now, since the OpenView days. We're the unbiased, trusted, field-tested user community for thousands of HP and more recent HPE software customers. And then with the acquisition of Micro Focus, included all of that. So if you're a customer of Micro Focus tools and you're using other tools in the security space or data protector or big data, and you don't feel you're being represented in our community, reach out to us. We're always looking for people to step up and volunteer their time to take advantage of sharing their knowledge in these other tools within our LUG. It's designed to support all the Micro Focus tools. And if you've got some insights on, we just did an upgrade, or here's some issues we've had, we can set up a webinar, share it to our group only, and it's just a great way to help each other. Believe me, I'm not technical whatsoever, but people would always come up to me thanking me for putting on these events so that they got something out of it. So again, I think, Don, that's good enough there. We've been around for a long time. We've got a lot of members. So what I'd like to do is I want to go and let's find out about you. We've got time. We designed this event so that we've got a little more time. Don could talk for the next 3 days, but we do want to get some insights from you. And, I'll start. I want to go to some of you that have signed up. So is it Avani? I want to, if you can unmute yourself and tell us, we know your name, but company and tools you're using, that would be great. We'll give you about 10, 15 seconds if you're going to come on, if you can. So maybe not. Chad, let's go to you.
Sure. So Chad Hetherington from General Electric. We use lots of different tools because we have a specific enterprise license agreement. So anything, we have ITOM and we have ADM products that are there. I run ALM as a service, Octane as a service, and manage the enterprise license agreement for all of GE.
Great. Thanks, Chad. And maybe we'll be at your facility soon. We'll put on another event. Maybe.
We'll see what COVID says about that.
By the way, Avanti just mentioned in the chat, from Clarios using ALMQC, UFT, and Performance Center.
Oh, great. Thanks, Avanti. Let's go to Dean Carvin.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great.
Cool. So I work with SQA out of New England, and I've been using, the tool since the Mercury days, 20 some years ago. So love UFT, and I installed UFT One. It looks fantastic, so I'm looking forward to this demo.
Yeah, Don knows just a little bit about it, so he'll share some of that for you.
That's what I hear. So good to know.
Have you been a Vivid member long?
I have been, yes. I don't know how many years, but quite a while. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think there's a New England chapter as well. I'm not sure if they're focused in testing, but if they are, stay connected with them as well.
I live in Northwest PA, so it's a bit of a distance, but
okay. Gotcha.
Might be one in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was for a while. In fact, I went out there as well. But back when it was the user or Mercury group, they were pretty strong, and Mark Herbert was running that, and he moved to Arizona. So
yeah, Mark Herbert and I are good friends. We worked years ago together.
Great. Thanks, Dean. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Debbie. Galen and Gaiman, or I'm not sure if you can hear us. Oops, just lost my people. No? Okay. Erica? Hello? I want to turn their mics on.
Intro for Erica. Erica is one of my my peers here at Micro Focus. So
gotcha.
Okay. Her mute button might be broken. I don't know.
Yeah, it just takes a little bit when I was just going to be listening. So thank you for the introduction. Yep.
Thanks, Erica. We got a Gary. I'm not sure if that's the same as Gary Gupta.
Yeah, hi everyone, it's Gary. I think I'm a special guest of Don. I've been hassling him about updates on various things, so I think he figured 2 birds with 1 stone to get me to come along to this. I work for SAP, but I'm based in the UK, as you might have guessed from my accent. I go back from the Mercury days with these tools. I'm doing a lot of migrations from Test Director to Quality Center. I also worked with Windrunner previously. So in SAP we use an awful lot of the Micro Focus tool sets for various different areas. We have sort of an enterprise COE type approach where people share the solutions for both performance, security, and functional testing. We're also a reseller of the products, we advise our SAP customers to use them as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Jeff Blaine.
That was a different Gary than Gary Gupta, by the way.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes.
How about Gary Gupta? No? Okay. Jeff Blaine? Tell us who you are. No? Okay. That one is out. Kunal Gupta?
Hey, hi. Yeah, my name is Kunal and I work for Vistra Energy. My role is basically in the business intelligence group, working on the Hadoop developer. We are using a lot of tools for integrating the middleware applications.
Okay, great, thank you. Robert Moore. Robert, if you're there, love to hear.
Robert posted in the chat that he's actually Randy from Hayworth in Holland, using UFT 1501, ALM 1260, Sprinter 15, and they are installing Octane.
So that's another great site that hopefully after COVID we could probably do a physical event on the west side of the state. So keep that in mind, Randy. We'd love to.
Sorry, this is Bob. Randy's in as me. So yeah, we'd love to host an event. We have a beautiful facility, so it'd be a great opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, we've done events at Herman Miller's Conference Center on Lake Macataw a few times. That was fun. And yeah, you guys all have the best office furniture to host an event, and you know, it's advertising as well, right? So no, that'd be great.
Yes.
So what tools are you using there, Robert?
Like Randy said, we are using the UFT, the ALM. We're looking to launch up mobile. We use a number of other tools in our testing. We're a pretty small shop when it comes to automatic testing. It's really just 3 of us.
Yeah, this is Randy. I was logged in as Robert, and we're just now starting to use Azure instead of Jenkins to launch our tests from ALM. So we have pipeline capability with DevOps.
That sounds great. Boy, I'd love to hear more about that. And again, you know, as things open up, maybe we can have an event at your place, or we can do it virtually down the road. So everyone that's on this call here from Michigan, if you'd like to share what you're doing today and how you're using the tools, that's what makes the secret sauce of Vivit work, is just bringing those use case scenarios. Everyone's got something different in their approach, so we'll take advantage of that. Let's go to Ron. Calais. I'm lousy at names.
Calais.
Yeah,
I just got the meeting invite and wasn't really sure what it would be about, so I thought I'd tune in and see what it was. Azure and DevOps are a couple familiar terms to me, but I'm not the technical person here for that.
Where do you work?
Ryder Logistics, sorry.
What's that?
Ryder Logistics.
Okay,
Ryder
great.
Logistics.
Gotcha. All right, super. And where are you guys located?
We're also in Michigan.
And what part of the state?
Novi.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We're neighbors. All right. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for joining. Scott LaRue.
Scott also posted in the chat. So he says he works with Randy and Robert. Same place, same tools.
All right. Thanks. Shilpa.
I'm from, sorry, I was on mute. I'm from Michigan too. I'm with the Chad's group. Yeah.
What group are you with?
We are with testing COE. I work with Chad.
Oh, it's Chad. Okay, at GE.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks for joining.
Mm-hmm.
And how about Keith? Last but not least, Keith. Unless I miss someone, but.
I am the manager for the TCOE at Harley Davidson.
Okay, cool. And that's in, are you out of Wisconsin?
Milwaukee.
Yeah, right. Cool. I think we got everybody, unless someone popped in that I didn't see, but I think we're good at that end, Don.
All right, well, great.
And
thanks, guys. So I'm open. Something you'll learn about me as I present is I'm open, honest, and maybe to a fault sometimes, but if you want to ask a question, if you're like me, I kind of have ADD, so if I don't ask my question, I'll forget it. So if you want to stop me halfway through, you're welcome to stop me and ask a question. If you don't feel comfortable talking or asking a question, you can always type it in the chat, and at the end, we'll have Rocky peppering me with questions that come in through the chat to the organizers as well. So what we're here to talk about is our AI capabilities, artificial intelligence capabilities. And we have been talking about this for about 18 months when we started down the journey and said, you know what, we think that AI is going to be really important for test automation. And that's what we're doing if you had roadmap sessions over the past 18 months. And we're now getting into the realization of that AI journey. So when we're talking with our customers, these are kind of the top 5 challenges that we hear about automated testing, that applications are changing too fast with the shift into Agile and into DevOps as well, that the pace of change is just happening too fast. Applications are changing faster than I can maintain my scripts, and because my tests keep breaking because of changes that are happening, whether that's from fragile identification, which we'll talk a little bit about later, or just because changes going into the application, that it's visually changing and that just the tests keep breaking. Another challenge that we hear is that we can't run tests quickly enough, so I'm happy to have a conversation at some point about UFT Developer Grid and some of the capabilities we have. So for example, you can actually in the AWS marketplace, you can spin up a UFT one machine VM that already has UFT installed on it, and you can actually rent the license from AWS to increase your lab. So those are examples of things that we've done recently to help with that. Lack of test coverage, and that kind of goes to the time, right? I don't have enough time to write scripts and maintain scripts, so I don't have enough time to increase my coverage, and then just an overall lack of quality. So these are the big 5 challenges that we're hearing from our customers right now when we send out our surveys.
Excuse me, Don.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to add an F there. My biggest challenge actually with testing is I don't get enough load. I mean, it's one thing to test, 1 or 2 records or 1 or 2 users, but I need to be able to test under load, and we call it stress testing.
Sure, absolutely. So this was specifically about functional test automation and not performance testing, so that we have a whole nother set of challenges when it comes to the performance testing space. So we do have a solution set that in the load runner family to address specifically under load or stress test, which is a type of load test. And happy to have that conversation and talk about that in details near the end, or we could certainly have some conversation one-on-one later if you'd like as well.
Well, fair enough. I just wanted to make sure that was addressed. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. By the way, I fired up Notepad so I can take notes so that I make sure I don't forget things, because my ADD mind, I'll completely forget later. So if you kind of look at the history of testing, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on some of these slides, but the challenges that we have is, back in the 80s, 80 to 90, manual testing, frankly, was enough, right? You really only had you had one monolithic application. It didn't change much, and you could cover it just by running tens of tests, and that was the scale that you had. In the 90s, with the introduction of things like XRunner and WinRunner, and being able to run on multiple Windows operating systems, you then started doing some light automation with hundreds of tests. And then when you get into the .com boom, web becomes king, but it's still evolving, and mobile just is starting, and now you've got thousands of tests that you have to run, right? So automation is really starting to become essential in order to get the level of quality that we see. And then this past decade, right, with the digital first and end user driving changes with Agile, and having the end users as part of Agile teams, you're really getting a lot of testing. You can see that you've factored up now from customers. We hear that there are tens of thousands of tests that they have to run on a cycle. And what's going to happen with as we and we were talking about this on the call before we got started, is IoT, right? So the Internet of Things, right? Smart devices and smart appliances and all the different things. Is it going to be hundreds of thousands of tests, potentially millions of tests? There are some customers that run millions of tests every month, right? So I talked with one customer out of North Carolina that said, yeah, we run about 3.5 million tests a month is what we execute. So getting to that, obviously you can't do that from a manual testing perspective, right? And so what our approach is to really be able to, and I know it's a cliche saying, is to work smarter, not necessarily harder, right? So as I've gone through my career, any business process or any task that I have to do more than once, I try to think of a way, how can I automate this process? It doesn't even have to be a test, right? So I ran an automation team we were automation of manual tasks. We didn't care if it was tests or other things, but we did automated tasks was our automation team, right? So if you look at AI, and I'm not going to go through all these statistics, but what IDC is telling us with these kind of statistics is that AI is really disrupting what businesses are doing today, right? And over the past couple years and the next few years, the market seems to be trending more towards adoption of AI. But what really is AI, okay? So AI is really an area of computer science that emphasizes creating an intelligent machine that can do pattern recognition and take actions accordingly, which is vastly different than when you think about test automation, what we've done in the past, which is programming it to look for this exact thing and go forward, right? So why can't it behave more like a human mind does? And that's really what AI is about, right? So there's deep learning, there's machine learning, there's also some data science that's baked into that. And essentially, the software, the AI, is trained, whether that's through unsupervised learning or supervised learning, to perform simple tasks initially. As your neural network grows, it becomes capable to do more and more complex tasks. And really, at its core, AI applications are based on pattern matching algorithms, right? It's looking for some kind of pattern. And we can see this in our own minds from a neural network, from the human neural network of as you grow up, how you recognize patterns, right? So how do you identify what's a dog, right? If you see a picture of a dog on the screen, how do you know it's a dog? Well, because there's patterns that you've baked into your neural network, and you've developed those synapses to go, oh, well, it's got 4 legs, it's got fur, it's got ears that are probably a little bit different. It tends to have the characteristics of the eyes are shaped a certain way, the muzzle's shaped a certain way, and it's okay if it's short nose or long nose. So you develop these patterns in your brain. And we're doing the same thing in the industry from an AI perspective. So essentially, these AI engines will have input data and comparing that to output and expected results, right? So some of the things that AI is now being used today for are things like analyzing CT scans and MRI scans. So you go into the office and you get an MRI scan, and the AI engine will analyze that and provide back to the doctor, this is what we see from a pattern recognition perspective on your MRI scan. We still have humans, obviously, doctors look at it because we don't trust the AI engine that much yet. But also self-driving cars, right? Recognizing what is a stop sign and the characteristics of a stop sign. Slow down the car. Being able to look both ways and check for traffic before it'll proceed further, right? So the self-driving car is a great example of AI. And then also, if you've dialed into some telephony call centers, rather than having a menu of press 1 for this, press 2 for this, it'll come up and say, what's your problem? How can I help you today, right? And you say something, it does speech to text and then applies pattern and says, oh, are you talking about this problem? And being able to solve problems automatically before you get even to a tier 1 support engineer, right? These are all examples in the industry of how AI is being used today. So what are the challenges in scaling automation and how AI can help with that, right? So we talked about the pace of change, right? So being able to build assets that are resilient so that as your application changes, you don't have to change your test script to make it to work with it. Having too many scripts and multiple scripts for the same business process. So if you think about an application that is deployed today, a digital application, chances are you're deploying not only on a desktop with multiple browsers and potentially multiple operating systems that you have to work against, but you're also dealing with mobile devices and multiple form factors and sizes of that and that same application. And anybody who's done test automation on mobile devices, the operating system for Android and the operating system for iOS are vastly different, and the object properties that get exposed from the application perspective are completely different. So most customers end up having multiple scripts. I have one for a desktop, one for Android, one for iOS, and maybe even a 4th one that is for a mobile web, right? So if I bring up the application and a website on the mobile device, that's different as well. There's also the challenge of the skills barrier, So it's not easy to get somebody who has the mindset of a good tester and can then apply those testing methodologies to writing the scripts. It's a definite skills barrier. It's hard to find somebody who's really an expert at test automation. And what that leads to is what we see in the marketplace is that there's on average a very low automation coverage rate and a high maintenance cost, right? All of these are contributing factors to that. So I talked about this example just a second ago, right? So from today's reality, right? So this is a demo application that we provide so that you can check out how your tools work on an e-commerce application that doesn't actually order anything, right? So we call it Advantage Online Shopping, and it's delivered on Android. So I might want to automate clicking on this profile, right? Well, the challenge is that the way that gets rendered on the different operating systems and the way that it looks are vastly different, right? So you see here on iOS, the color's a little different, and the properties, underlying properties are different. And the mobile web, it looks completely different. And then on a browser, it looks different yet again, right? So this is that example of just to click on that one thing so that I can log into the application. I will have 4 different versions of the script, or maybe 4 different versions of an object repository in one script. And that really leads to a time to market challenge, right? So, makes the ROI of test automation be arguable, right? So if I have 4 different versions of that script and somebody makes a change, now I have to change it in 4 different places, and that's a problem. So here's an example of something like that happening, right? So this is an example of a UFT script against that application that's going to click on the menu, click on the profile, log in, and very simple application, right? Very simple script. And the challenge that you see in today's world is what happens when I have change, right? So this script works, right? And I would say as a test automation guy, great, it's ready to go, and I put it live to test new versions. So what happens if we introduce a change? Okay, so a small change to the application. So you can see here that the before is that the cart's on the left and the menu's on the right, and then afterwards we just flip those icons. And what happens? So I rerun that same script that was working fine and I thought was perfect, and now my test is going to fail. And I get the wonderful, for those of you that utilize UFT, so most of you probably utilize UFT, otherwise you probably wouldn't want to hear me talk about AI for UFT. And I get the wonderful run error screen that I now have to go figure out what's wrong, right? And the reason that this failed, as you can see here, right? So here's an example of I can't find what you're looking for, right? So why did the test break? Well, the test broke because underlying, when I created this test, it created an object repository underneath it that is using the object properties. And inside of Android, the way that you uniquely identify this is, among other things, using the index. And because it shifted position, we're now clicking on the same index of object, and it's not working, right? So my script broke because of a development change. As a manual tester, as a human, it would be easy for me to handle this type of thing, right? So what if we could actually automate the way a test to behave the way a human does, right? So I want to click the profile button, type in 17T into the search. I want to click the search button or click the cart icon, right? So we all know what a cart icon looks like, right? And if we sat down and they said, click the cart icon, you'd be able to find the cart icon on the screen because we know what that looks like. We've got the neural network built for that. So what we've done at Micro Focus is we have leveraged computer vision. So the concept of computer vision, which is one of the disciplines inside of AI, to identify objects the same way a human does. So rather than taking a picture of it, so there are some quote unquote AI solutions on the marketplace that are really doing pixel matching for a picture, right? So they take a picture of it and then they do pixel matching with a variance of say 10%. And if that picture is matched, then off you go. We've actually developed it to scan the screen and look for based on how a human does, right? So hamburger menu, tends to be 3 lines and they're stacked on top of each other, right? So look for something on the screen that kind of looks like a hamburger menu. And if you identify it, give a confidence level, right? And then we've taken that and built a neural network to as a separate abstraction layer from the computer vision to say, okay, now that I've identified the object on the screen, what can I do with that object on the screen, right? So if you think about a search button, which is the little magnifying glass, right? So if I told you to go find the search button, you'd be able to find it because you know what a magnifying glass equals search on the screen, right? And most applications use magnifying glass as search. But what can you do with the search, right? So your neural network goes, well, I can type in a value and then click the magnifying glass button and it'll search, right? So that's what the neural network does. So if I see an example of that, so this is an example of running on Android and an iOS device using that neural network, the computer vision and the neural network to identify the objects and then interact with them. So you can see we're launching the device first on excuse me, on Android and logging into the application, and then we're going to do a search for the product and add it to the cart. And just to speed it up for the sake of time, so I can then look at it and see across the 2 operating systems that for Android and iPhone, I was able to run that exact same business process across both without having to maintain 2 different object repositories or 2 different scripts. So that's the big thing that we're doing from an computer vision and neural networks. So we're also introducing natural language processing, which is another practice in the AI world, in the AI realm of computer science, to make it. Wouldn't it be great if you could write a script that says, go to Google and search for a dog, make sure that the images are all dogs. And that would be automated automatically. And so what we've introduced is a product called Codeless that comes with UFT One that you all have access to if you're under maintenance for UFT One. And it allows you to write in plain English like. It is not completely plain English yet, and that's the goal that we're going towards, is to get to where you can just write in plain English. There's a lot of nuance to the English language that is even regionally different, right? So if you think about how you say, click on the search button, and somebody who has English as a second language might not say it exactly the same way. That's kind of the nuance that we're working on enhancing the natural language processing to be able to handle. But here you can see very simple, remove the skills barrier of writing code, right? So they're not getting down to that VB script. They don't have to look at VB script. It's all recognizing, and you can see how easy it is to create the script with Codeless. This is already for customers like yourselves that have UFT or UFT One. This is already delivered as part of that solution that you can start leveraging Codeless today. So breaking news, we just released UFT 15.0.1, and in that release, we have extended the AI capabilities of computer vision and the neural network to the browser level as well. So what does that mean? So that means to me that here's an example of writing a script, and the business process is all documented in the script ahead of time. And you can see that I want to run it against Chrome, Firefox, and an iOS device. So this is how you could potentially write the script. You could manually write, hey, if the hamburger menu exists, then click on the hamburger menu, right? So this is kind of how that script would look like. You can also script it by using the SPY. So the SPY that you see today, that you all know and love today, of being able to identify the object properties, there's now an auto inspection that you can turn on for AI that will tell you, hey, you could use an AI identification for this application, for this object, instead of using object properties. So this is another way that you can do it. You can click on the AI button that gets enabled when you install and turn on AI with UFT One. And you can just drag and drop the different steps that you have from the screen into your script. And you can see that there are other objects that we recognize on the screen, like help, and if time providing, I'll bring up on the help center of where and what objects we have. We also recognize things by text. So the first option is always to try to recognize something by the look of it versus the associated text. Backup doing the associated text, but you can do a third backup of if the AI engine is not recognizing your object at all. You can use your traditional object recognition that you use today, and over 200 technologies that UFT One supports. So you can see here, we're actually executing the test and against a mobile device, and it's going to come up and show you that. And the beauty of utilizing AI is anyone who's done test automation, whether it's with our tool or other tools, is you have to maintain what we call in UFT One the object repository. Back in the day in Windrunner is called the GUI map. With other tools are called different things, but that relationship between the logical name and the object properties. With AI, you don't have to maintain that anymore because it's recognizing it using the computer vision and the neural network to identify the objects. So if I extend that even further, and here you can see I've taken that script that I just showed you, and I've enhanced it to do both login and log out, and I've enhanced it now so that it's going to run against Chrome, Firefox, iOS, Android, and web mobile on an Android. And you see there was nothing in the object repository. And I'm just gonna fast forward real quick. You can see it running against there. I don't know that you guys all wanna watch this run because that's terribly exciting. And then if I look at the results and I search on, for example, sign in. So this is one of the advantages as well. So on our application, you can see it's called sign in on a browser. So that's Chrome. This is Firefox. It's called sign in. And then if I scroll down and I look on iOS, it's actually called login with no space. The AI engine's able to recognize that as the same object. It is the same object because that's how the human would recognize it as the same object, right? And then if you look at that profile again that I showed the picture earlier, you can see that the profile icon looks vastly different, but the AI engine is able to recognize that across platform, across form factor as well. So this is now in the iOS. You can see it's a vastly different object, and it's a vastly different object from Chrome than it is to a web native application, a mobile native application. So I'm going to transition into a live demo. Okay, so a lot of our customers, you have scripts already written, right? And how do I know when I should leverage, or if I can leverage AI to improve the resiliency of my tests? So what I have for you guys, by the way, is everyone still there? Because I've been talking a lot and I haven't heard anybody. Is anyone still there?
We're here, Dan.
Okay.
We are enthralled.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I first saw this, I kind of went, wait a second. It was this epiphanous moment to say, what do you mean I don't have to maintain an object repository anymore?
I'm furiously writing notes to my automation team right now, so keep going.
All right, so this is a using traditional object recognition, okay? So if I bring up the object repository, I can drill into this and I can see these are all the objects that I'm dealing with. I've modified this particular object because I want to look for the first available product in the application and the second available product indication. So I've had to go in and modify the object properties to use the index rather than the associated table location. And if you're not following what I mean by that, I'm happy to have a conversation. But it's one of those things, you know, the difference between an entry-level automation person and a more experienced somebody, because the business process that I'm going to execute, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this real quick so that when we show the end state, you can see the vast difference. Okay, so let's just close that. Some other practices, just a suggestion, right? So I'm a firm believer in commenting, as you can tell. I'm also running this. This, as you can see, looked vastly different than the earlier videos I showed you, where I was using traditional view of UFT One. This is using dark mode, which was also introduced in 1501. I don't know about you guys, but I stare at the computer screen for 10, 12 hours a day. The harsh black on white background kills my eyes. I love dark mode. Anything that has dark mode makes me very happy. The other thing I've done is I've set up some, just to make the script more readable. I have this set command here to make it so that it doesn't say, every single statement doesn't say browser dot page shopping cart dot whatever, right? So just to make it more readable. And then in line, I actually put comments on the individual line so that if my script breaks and I get that window up, I actually can see what it is, the manual process I was trying to do to replicate in that same line, so that when I'm trying to troubleshoot my script, it's easier to troubleshoot, faster to troubleshoot. Takes a little bit longer to document originally, but I can then hand this to a business user and they can look at the comments to see what it is I'm doing and make sure that I'm doing the right thing. So let's go ahead and run the script. And you can see what it is that it's doing. So this is actually going against an SAP Fiori application. This is a demo application that's hosted by our friends at SAP. Shout out to you, Gary Voller, on the call. It is a S4 HANA environment that is publicly available that is used for demos. And as you can see, it's going in, it's adding a product to the cart and then deleting it from the cart, because I didn't ask Gary if I'm allowed to place orders on this demo system. So I didn't want a chance, you know, placing orders on the demo system and causing stock issues for other customers or for SAP. So I don't want to actually place an order on the demo system. And you can see it's running 2 iterations. One thing to note is that, remember I talked about first and second available product. You can see that based on the category I picked, it picked the second one down in the table on the first iteration, and then like the 6th one down on the table in the second iteration, because it was the second available product. And if I look at the script, right, the results, this is your traditional report. I can look at it, and obviously we have screenshotting on, all the wonderful things that you have today for documentation that you can do to document to auditors of, yes, the automated script did do exactly what it was supposed to do, is still in there. So let's say hypothetically it breaks or whatever, and I need to go in here and maintain this. So we have put out on the ADM marketplace, the Micro Focus. Oh, I can't believe I clicked on IE. Sorry, meant to click on Chrome because I like Chrome. And if I search on Micro Focus Marketplace and click on Micro Focus Marketplace, we have posted out here a thing called AI Awareness. And it's a function library. If I click on it, that is publicly available to any customer who is registered on the marketplace, and it uses your standard sign-in that you use to open up support tickets. Obviously, I'm an employee, so it wouldn't look standard if I logged in. But had I logged in and downloaded it, I will get a little function library called AIawareness.qfl. And it's a 43K file, so it's not this huge file that you have to download. I can right click on the script itself, or I could go to File Settings. Either way, I'm going to Settings, go to Resources, and I'm going to add that function library to my script. And all I'm going to do is add it and then rerun. I will tell you, this is, you have access to see what the source code is for this. You have the ability to maintain it. There's a README file that says this is how you use the different flags that are in here. You can see stuff is commented, and if you really want to get down into the weeds, you can figure out how this stuff works, and you could potentially update this, your own copy of AI Awareness, to do something else if you wanted. So if I go ahead and run that, oh, excuse me. Oops, did I just close the wrong thing? I did, I closed the wrong thing. Haha. Let me just hit play. What the AI Awareness function library does for you is every object that you interact with on the web page or on the mobile device, because AI Awareness works on the mobile devices as well, but it's a broader appeal, I think, for desktop browser, is it's going to highlight what you're interacting with. It's then going to check the AI engine to see if that object that's being highlighted that you're interacting with can be identified by the AI engine. And if so, how it would be identified based on how your script is interacting with it. So if you're doing a click, it would obviously give you a click method. Make sense? And you can see it's going through this iteration again to the two iterations that the script is driven off of, because it's data driven. This works with data driving. One thing I would caution you is, as you can see, it executes much slower than it did before, because it's now doing all this interrogation and building a report to show you what it can do. So if you have, 100 rows of data that you need to test, I would probably, have it run only on one, maybe a couple of rows, so that from a time perspective, it doesn't take forever to run your script. So it's executing through the script, and you can see here, once again, that available. I was talking about the second available product. Here's the first one. And it clicks on it, and then it clicks on the second available one, which now you can see is down here rather than the second one in the table. Are there questions while this is executing that somebody has, that somebody wants to ask, or should I just?
Yeah, Don.
Sure.
I've got one here from Robert Moore. How can you tell if AI is on or off in the current install? And if not, how do you turn AI on?
Great question. So you can tell, the quickest way to tell is when you have UFT up, and I'll do that in just a second. There's an AI button, and if the AI button's not there, it's either not installed or it's not turned on, because it's a two-step process. You have to install it and turn it on. And I will show the installation is part of the installation media. So there's a subfolder, I believe it's called AI. I'd have to go dig through the installation media, but I think it's just called AI. This is that button I was talking about. And the way that you turn it on once you have it installed is you come in here to Options, GUI Testing, and click AI, and click this checkbox, and then reboot, not reboot, but restart UFT. So now that the script, oh, and by the way, in case those of you who don't notice, there's little color icons up here that you might not be familiar with, that you never have seen in UFT. That's because I am using a capability that we introduced a while back to integrate with Git. So I'm actually using Git as an SCM, and I can do use all the wonderful capabilities of a true SCM to do diffs, reverts, create branches, all that wonderful stuff with my UFT script. That's why you see these little color icons. It's telling me that I have a change to the script, but I don't have a change to this level of it. If I bring up the last run results, the AI awareness function library is going to tell me, at the highest level, this is where stuff is stored, so that you can go in and interrogate it. And you can see that it says, hey, for this step, this object is what you interacted with, what it looks like. And you could take this command that you have in your script and you could replace it with this command. So I could copy that and go to my script, and it's actually this command right here. And I could replace it and go like this. And if I keep my good practice of documenting, I would, of course, I would copy and paste that in there. You'll notice that I commented out the old code. In this particular case, I'm actually data driving off of that, so I can go in and make changes to that. And now I have converted that object from traditional object recognition to now using AI object recognition. I can further clean this up where I could go in, and now that I am no longer using that, I could go in and delete that from my object repository and clean up my object repository. Now, I'm not going to do that for every single statement on here because this would take some time to do, right? But if I do that, what I end up with is a script that looks like this. Well, that's beautiful, right? I got to wait for my script to load now. There we go. So this is what my script looks like. And as you can see, I have comments in here. I have an example in here of an AI sync point. By the way, these scripts that I have here, happy to share with anybody if you want access to it. I will give you the Git repo and you can do a pull request and play to your heart's content. And you can see all the stuff that I've written in here. So now that I've done all this, I bring up my object repository, and what you will see is I only have the browser. And the reason I have one object in the object repository is because I have to tell the AI engine what to look at. Do I look at a browser or a device or a browser on a device? What am I looking at, right? Where should it start scanning? That's the one object that has to be in the object repository. So now if I rerun this exact same script, it's the same business process that I was doing before, only now I don't have anything in my object repository, right? And you can see that I'm using things like click on the shopping cart icon, just find it on the screen and find it. Completely open and honest with you guys, the AI engine, because it's scanning the page and looking for the object based on that algorithm, you can see it does execute slightly slower than the traditional object recognition. But that makes the assumption that you're not using smart identification. If you are using smart identification because your object repository isn't properly tuned and you're having to lean on smart identification to find the objects, the AI engine will run significantly faster than smart identification does. So you can see here, one of the things that it's scanning for is the shopping cart icon. Fiori collapses and expands different areas. That's kind of one of the key characteristics of a Fiori looking application. You see things pop out and slide over and resize based on it. It works just fine against the SAP Fiori. And if you think about, for those of you that are SAP shops, which I know a good deal of you are, SAP Fiori, same application is going to run on your mobile device as well as on your desktop. AI, same script will work on your mobile device and your desktop. So you can see here now it's doing the second product, the beam breaker. By the way, I love the names that they use for these generic supplier's name is Technocom. What a great, somebody was really inventive. That's all I gotta say. Whoever was creating all this master data. And it's now clearing the cart. And in a second, it'll finish up the iteration and I'll bring up the report to show this. Are there other questions while we're waiting for it to finish up executing?
You know, nothing that I can see done from an end user at this point. I could go into some of the other more standard questions if you'd like.
Sure.
Like what version of UFT One has AI in it?
So AI was introduced as a tech preview for mobile in 1453, and it is GA for starting in 1501 for mobile, and became tech preview for desktop browsers in 1501. So the latest and greatest version of UFT One is what you have to be on to do it for what I'm showing here.
So if anyone wants to ask a question, they can either put it in the chat window or they can unmute themselves and interrupt Don.
So I'd like to poll the audience here. Okay, so this is the part, we have about 28 minutes left. You like how I do that? It's about 28 minutes and I use an exact number. There are two things that we wanted to cover yet. So one is we can finish up and just kind of recap what we talked about, and then stop the recording, and then we can go into a roadmap session, which will be covered by your NDA that you have with Microfocus. That's option one. Option two is what I like to do is I like to poll the audience and get a website, a publicly accessible website that you guys would like me to start scripting against, and show you how I could script with AI. So I don't think we have time to do both. What does the audience want?
So they can put that in the chat window, either one or two.
One being, let's do the roadmap session. Two being,
right.
And this is the website I'd like you to see. I'd like you to do.
Right, and B was the website, going to a public website, or it's number two option. So number one option is getting into the roadmap, and number two is pulling up a public website and show your magic of how that works. So please add that to the chat if you can, and we'll decide based on the popular
so we got a couple
poll
of
which way we'll go.
While we're waiting for that. So one question was, is there a benefit to running tests that have multi-action iteration strings as opposed to calling a run action within a test? If you're talking about a reusable action from a different script, there is normally less than a second, depending on where that script was stored. Time differential to have it load that script into memory. So is there a difference? Yes. Beyond that, I can't think of one. I'm happy to dig more. If you've experienced something, you can feel free to email me, and I'm happy to take that kind of offline if you've seen something different. Second question, is Mobile Center required for the AI and the phone testing? It is not. With UFT One, you are allowed to do tethered mobile device testing to the machine that is your UFT machine. So you can plug in a physical device. I happen to have one right here. You could plug in like your tablet to your machine and run a test against this tablet. The advantage you get with what used to be called Mobile Center is now called UFT Mobile is that you have that as a shared lab, that everyone can use those devices and reserve the devices and all that. But if you have the ability, you have physical devices that you need to plug in and run against a single device, you can do that with your UFT One license. Let's see, 1, 2, 1. All right, so it sounds like we're gonna do a roadmap session. So let's just kind of wrap up. So the key benefits that we're seeing, when you think about having 4 different versions of the same script and that I don't have to maintain an object repository, we are seeing with our initial customers that were on the development partner program and internally with developing scripts ourselves, of a maintenance cost reduction of about 70%. Could be more, could be less. I think it's rather conservative. If I think about, I can go from 4 scripts to 1. I just reduced my script creation and maintenance time by 75% because I went from 4 to 1. Automation coverage increasing by 30%. Let's be honest, it's not rocket science. If I free up your time for maintenance, you've got more time to write more scripts. I know that's crazy talk. Developing tests faster, so not having to deal with interrogating what object properties are being used to identify and making sure that those are good object properties to identify significantly reduces the amount of time that you have to spend when you're creating a test. And once again, I'm going from 4 scripts to 1. And we didn't go into NLP today because just frankly time. I kind of showed a little bit of NLP, but the idea of being able to take an NLP script and using the AI engine underneath NLP and writing it in almost plain English makes it so that you can start extending these tests and test automation creation to less technically savvy people, and then everyone can write tests. And that's the goal of where we want to get to eventually, is that you'll just write stuff in English, it'll go to the AI engine, and boom, your tests are automated. So guys, thank you so much. We're gonna do what we're gonna do is a quick wrap up from the Vivid side. And then we will close down the recording because the roadmap session is not allowed to be recorded. And then we'll go into the roadmap session. So Rocky, if you want to do the wrap up.
Thanks, Don. Hey, that was really great. Detailed information, not much marketing stuff at all. That's what practitioners want to learn. So that was perfect. So one of the things that we want to introduce you to, if you haven't already heard about it, is our Espresso Talks. And this is where Jonathan Wright, the Vivid president, he has 20, 30-minute conversations with practitioner, really, level type folks talking about their experience with the technology and maybe directions on where they see things going. And we've done about 6 or 7 of these things so far. So you can go to our website and you'll see a pull down tab for that to take advantage of listening to some of these recordings. We're seeing more and more, obviously, virtual type things going on these days. So we're trying to use various tools to bring you content that's relevant for you. And if you'd like to
Rocky,
be part of, yeah.
If I can interject just for a second. So the question earlier about performance engineering, there's an Espresso Talks episode right there on performance engineering 2.0. That might be a bit advanced based on what the question was right then, but hey, there's already an asset that Vivid has for you that can talk about performance engineering, especially during the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, from Todd DeCapua, who's been like you in this space for a long, long time, and is an evangelist like you, Don, about these technologies. So it was a great conversation. I listened to it back when it was first recorded. So super. Next slide. So again, thanks everyone for attending this part of the webinar. For sure, you want to get the roadmap here. So we'll be stopping the recording here soon. And just to let you know, for those of you, fill out the survey, provide any feedback, like things you'd like to hear going forward. And believe me, it's all about what you want. As a Michigan LUG user group, we're here to support you as customers and to help you grow your career any way we can. So for those that did attend today's session, you'll be receiving a $25 virtual dining card. They're using a few different types. So you'll see something in your email along with recording of this session and the Q&A and all that kind of stuff. So I think with that, we can stop the recording.